Yo, what's up? I was just recording some footage for my promotional videos, and I thought it might be neat to record here what my setup for this is like. So, here is the TV upon which I am playing the background video, and then my little stand with my LED light that can switch colors and all that. And then I have a little chair right in front of this, and I just sit there. And then I have this table here with my tripod on it right in front of this thing, like right here. And I just sit right in front of there and record it like that. So, pretty cool. Cool. Now, after experimenting with a whole bunch of, sorry, let me just set up my tripod here. After experimenting with a whole bunch of different lighting styles, and let me turn this up. A whole bunch of different lighting styles and like positions of my closeness to the camera and all that. I think I've pretty much figured out. Oh well. I was just thinking I should have probably uploaded the actual videos I just recorded onto my computer, and then I could have shown while I was talking like all the different styles I went with. But basically, I found that I actually have an old test that's kind of similar to what I figured today. So something like this is still probably among my favorites. Definitely I want the pitch black on one side. I think it's really cool and I like that style. I think it's representative of what I want to go for. And then I think this little bit of green with the blue was probably the best result. One other one that seemed to work decently was a bit of orange with a slight green mix to it, which actually, now that I think about it, I did here as well. Although I think this one, I think I like artificially made this one orangish. I think this one was actually originally the same as the blue one, and I just edited the shit out of it. But anyway, so I think I'm pretty happy with that, and it does look like those blue and orange shots are in fact the best options. So now it's just a matter of going through all the footage I took tomorrow and picking out the best one, and then this isn't going to be the final shot yet because I need to actually record my line with the lav mic, like be talking while I'm recording the footage. But the hardest part about this is going to be editing those shots and interlacing it with the footage from the game in a way that looks decent, in a way that makes sense. The idea I have in mind is that I'm kind of like coming, almost like I'm an alien from space broadcasting my project down to Earth. That's sort of the vision I have in mind. So it's a matter of some clever effects and I guess splicing together of the footage of how exactly I do the transition and all that to get that idea across effectively and to do a good job of it. So I think the base footage I have here is good. The only thing that's really bugging me about whether or not this will work is just the big contrast in color and style between my game and the footage of myself. But I think if I put enough good, cool editing effects to connect the two together, I think it should work okay. Something to imply like a transmission kind of idea coming from the gameplay footage along with the footage of myself. So anyway, that was some of what I was just doing for the past few hours or so. And then the other thing I looked at today, still my schedule still a little screwed up. As I mentioned yesterday, I've had somewhat of a mental block recently with procrastinating on this because I don't know, I'm just nervous about it deep down. I think it's giving me some anxiety. So the other thing that I worked on anyway, was I got into starting to work on the boss fight again. So I basically just set up the whole level so that it's working properly again, and I implemented Goemon's basic sprite here. as you can see. He has one animation where he draws his sword, but that's pretty much it right now. So it's still functioning according to the original design that I made for this fight. Oh wait, sorry. You probably couldn't see that very well. Let me pull out. So he draws a sword and then the fight just starts right away. Now, the fight is a little silly now with the current mechanics in hindsight. Let's see if I can beat it. If I remember how it works. Come on, bro. Oh, it's pretty hard. You have to get the timing just right when he's like dodging around. But basically, my judgment on this is that it is hot garbage. Oh, got him. So it's kind of fun to play, but it's very, very, very rough. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the lantern kicking aspect of it. That's way too much. I think it's kind of silly. And before I had him, it wasn't working here, but he has a stage in which he's supposed to be throwing projectiles at you as well, which I'm not sure I want to do that either. I feel like this first fight with Gomen should be very focused on swordplay. And I want it to be a cool, really intense, short sword fight. I was thinking one thing that I want to do uniquely with my boss fights is stick to the central design philosophy of the whole game, where everything is very quick, very instant, one hit kill deaths. So I was thinking even the bosses themselves, instead of going for the stereotypical like bunch of different I don't know, like a huge health bar, or he can take multiple hits or stuff like that, I was thinking it would be cool if I can find a way to make this so it's like literally a 30-second max fight, and you you do like a back and forth with some kind of sword play, and then it's literally just you have to find the right moment to strike at him while his defenses are down, and it's a one-hit kill just like all the other enemies. And I thought if I can figure a way to do that creatively, and where I can communicate to the player how it works exactly, I think it could be something really unique, and I really just want to capture that feeling of a super fast fight to the death one-on-one style, where it's not this grand spectacle like in a lot of games, but just a really intense, straight to the point fight that you can retry instantly, and it's not frustrating because the fight is actually so fast. It's just a matter of getting good enough to hit like just the right moment to strike at him or something like that. So that's my vision for that. And yeah, I pretty much need to completely redesign this and sit down and think about how I want to do this, because it's the current design, like I said, it's pretty fun actually. It's intense, but it's I don't think it communicates very well how the hell it works, or like what you're supposed to do to beat him exactly. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a little goofy overall. I want to find a way to streamline it. So I'm going to have to think about that a lot tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Finally, the last thing I did today, I went for a walk outside, and while I was chilling out there, I actually came up with an idea. I was thinking about, with these promo videos, I have already written a good dozen scripts for them. So I have enough material to probably produce these once I figure out my final version of it. I have enough material to produce like a good few weeks worth of these videos already. So I figured I should go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do for my long form YouTube video that I want to do after that. And that was another tricky one, because I want to do a similar style to these shorts of something completely different with how I'm presenting my brand, my Solideo idea, and what I am exactly and what I'm doing. So I wanted to use that similar style, but I was thinking the kinds of scripts I was writing for this, they work for a very short format where it's just a few lines and then I cut to the gameplay. I think that'll work there. But for a long form, I think it would be really bizarre to do like a whole 15-minute video of me talking about something kind of related, but not really, because I'm mostly just showing like the stuff that I've been working on for the past few months. And I think it'd be really weird if I spoke about some abstract philosophical thing while just showing footage of that. Like, it just doesn't really work in a longer format, right? In the same way how it does for something like that's only like 10 seconds long. So I was thinking about how I can write that, and I think I came up with a really good idea actually that's sort of, I don't even know if narratively this would be considered, you have like first person and then there's talking about yourself in the third person, and I don't know if what I came up with would be called second person. I don't know, but it's kind of like I wrote a script in a way where it's like I'm talking to the person watching the video personally, talking about it as if they're making the game, and I'm describing the story that they went through, the narrative they went through, but really it's about the process of the making of the game, if that makes sense. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not familiar with any books or anything that use this particular narrative device or structure. I don't know what you would call it, but it struck me as a very unique way of doing it, and it feels like it fits well, and it feels like it gives me a logical way how I can create a kind of story out of these videos and at the same time emphasize a philosophical element to it. So I'm really happy that I came up with that idea, and I wrote just like the first opening paragraph for it just to get it going. And so I'm gonna keep working on that, and then yeah, and just figure out exactly how I'm gonna tie that into like the footage and everything. But yeah, I was glad to have figured something out for that too. So, yeah, a couple other random things I wanted to mention. First of all, oh, you know what? I knew it. This whole time I had this on the zoomed out thing. I keep forgetting to turn that off after I show stuff from my game. Okay. Two other things I wanted to mention. One was with the procrastination stuff I've been doing recently, the past couple days or so, and being thrown off my regular routine. I've noticed that this happens to me all the time while I'm in the process of working as well. If, for example, I need to fix a bug or maybe add a new feature to my game, and I'm trying out a bunch of stuff and it's not working, and I realize that I really need to sit down and lock in to figure out exactly how I'm going to solve this problem. I notice whenever I come across that situation, I get this sudden urge to just start browsing random shit on the internet, to just find something to distract myself with. And then I'll do that for a few minutes, and then I go back to the game and try to work on it again. And then if I still can't think of something, I go back to doing that. And I notice that it's this kind of, I think it's related to what I've been experiencing on a bigger level recently, of this sense of nervousness, of anxiety about not being able to solve the problem. So then I try to put it off. And maybe it's some kind of ego preservation thing, like, oh, if I just put it off, then it's not like I can't do it. It's like I just have chosen not to do it yet. Or if just, I don't know, maybe it's a coping mechanism for the brain of not wanting to do extra work or something. I don't know what it is, but I notice that, yeah, I just get a strong urge to move away from the problem anytime I run into one. But I do wonder also if it's possible that that's actually a creative thing, where allowing my brain to turn off and do something mindless for a bit allows the creative parts to sort of sit back and relax and spin in the back of my mind. So then when I come back again, maybe I suddenly have a new idea or something. I don't know. I doubt that though, because I feel like when I'm fully concentrated and I just face a problem head on and force myself not to get distracted, I'm able to figure something out anyway. So chances are, yeah, it's just some bullshit avoidance behavior, I guess. So yeah, I run into that problem normally when I'm working, and now I think because I've been just nervous in general about the idea of how am I going to make these videos and put them out there, and like what are people going to think? This is going to be something so weird and different, and it feels more vulnerable and whatever. And so I feel like it's that same kind of procrastination thing for the past few days where I've been putting it off because of that. But I think I'm in the zone, well, slowly getting back in the zone now. And the other thing I wanted to mention tonight was the assassination of Charlie Kirk that happened today. Not gonna lie, I thought it was pretty fucked up. And normally I'm not someone who, when I read things in the news, it gets to me all that much, or I even think about it much, but something about him in particular getting killed seemed to me as just particularly messed up. Because Charlie Kirk, at the end of the day, whatever you think of him, is a guy who goes around talking to people and doing stupid debates on college campuses. I mean, I was not a fan of his politics, and I really don't like in general nowadays how many guys like him. And then there's, your Ben Shapiro's or Hassan or Destiny or Jordan Peterson or all these kinds of people. None of them I consider to be proper intellectuals. I find them all to be very mediocre and surface level people in terms of the things they talk about and the ideas they present and the way in which they discuss things with people. And it annoys me to no end that they are the most popular people that other people listen to. And I feel like it's a reflection of the average person's lack of critical thinking skills. But nonetheless, even if I wasn't a fan of the guy's politics and the way he argued things and whatnot, it's just crazy to me that somebody whose whole thing is being the equivalent of a YouTuber, a guy who goes around arguing with people, would get assassinated for that. And I feel like it's a reflection not only of the polarization of politics in the US, but also the extremes to which things are going in terms of people's inability to have conversations with each other. I'm someone where even like, if you took even the absolute worst kinds of worst kind of person, like a literal self-professed neo-Nazi or something, I would still rather have that person be expressing their ideas in public out loud, because I don't know. First of all, I don't know of any historical examples where anyone like that came to power because of free and open speech and debate. I feel like every historical example I know of are those groups usually being repressed and isolated, and then in the shadows of society, they start to become increasingly extreme and to gather more members from society and so on, and it gives them a victim complex, like a persecution complex as well. I remember back in college, actually, I took a Psych 101 course where one of the studies we covered was one that found that when people with similar views hang out together in a group, over time their views become more extreme, which I think logically makes sense too. If you think about how if you're in a group of like-minded people and somebody presents an idea that would shift the group's mindset in the opposite direction from their beliefs, like you come in and it's like a liberal group and you suggest a conservative idea, that's probably going to get rejected by everyone in the group. But if you suggest an idea that's more on the liberal side of things, but it's a little more extreme than what the group currently believes, most will probably reject it. But you'll have even just one or two people in there who are kind of like, yeah, actually, I can sort of see that. And it's slightly more acceptable. So over time, as a group's way of thinking develops, between all the ideas that get presented that move in the opposite direction versus ideas that are just more extreme versions of what they already believe, the group's obviously going to have a bias towards moving in the direction and slowly agreeing with ideas that are more in the vein of what they already believed, but a little bit more extreme. So that over time, it seems inevitable that the end result will be a much more extreme version of what they originally believed. So I think the more people are isolated away from each other and people just hang out in their little groups and they don't talk to one another, the more dangerous and the more extreme things get. And which, funny enough, ironically, was exactly the point that Charlie was making all the time in many of his videos. He was always saying that he liked doing all the college campus debates and stuff that he did because he thought that things get violent if people are no longer able to talk with each other, which, as it turns out, is the case. And even if he was perhaps responsible for saying things sometimes that could be interpreted as advocating paranoia and suspicion and hatred towards various groups of people, yeah, I don't know, man. I just think that someone getting killed because they have stupid ideas or because they express them or they like to debate people or whatever is, I don't know, it's a sad state of affairs. It's kind of insane. A politician, the assassination of an actual politician, I can understand. At least those are people who make decisions that might seriously affect other people's lives. But someone like Charlie Kirk, it's like, I don't know, man. It's bizarre. Oh, and then it also didn't help that when I was on Twitter and I just initially saw this, there were videos of him getting shot like all over the place. Normally, I'm not someone who likes to watch any of that kind of shit, but I couldn't avoid it. It was everywhere. So I unintentionally ended up seeing it, and like I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty crazy how real life violence has so radically different from fantasy stuff. Like, even I've seen some of the most realistic, gory movies and TV shows and video games my whole life that I watched, but still watching that video was like, it's like something else, man. Like, the image is fucking burned into my mind now. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it like all day, seeing him get shot like that. So it's pretty fucked up stuff. And people were saying too, some of the people who justify something like this. I mean, first of all, to talk about the practical political strategy here, there was obviously no thinking person behind this. The end result of this is obviously going to be nothing except really bad stuff for left-leaning and liberal people. Yeah, as a political strategy, assassinating this guy was like quite possibly one of the dumbest things you could do. Up there with trying to assassinate Trump. This is like just underneath that, basically. Nothing good could possibly come of this, and this is probably only going to make the left look even worse. And feeds exactly into the narrative that conservatives often try to push out, that liberals and leftists are unable to have rational conversations and that they do insane stuff and whatnot. So rationally, there's nothing good about this. But nevertheless, you had some people, obviously you have the hate-driven, mentally unstable people who are, celebrating his death. But you also had people, one thing that annoyed me is that there's a lot of people who will say that sometimes to make real change in politics that you have to make use of violence. But in most cases, historically, violence is actually pretty inefficient and useless. Specifically, one thing that pissed me off was I saw this one person who tweeted about the French Revolution. They said, violence is sometimes necessary in politics. It's thanks to the French Revolution that we have democracy. And this kind of thing pissed me off because this is what I mean, where only stupid people who don't know what they're talking about say things like this. The French Revolution did not lead to democracy. The French Revolution led to the rise of Napoleon. So really the complete opposite of democracy, actually. And in most cases, when you look into it, most revolutions and most just like sudden explosions of violence within a country almost never results in a better situation. In some rare circumstances it did, but historically in most cases it almost always leads to a worse situation, oftentimes a much worse situation. Usually it ends up with some kind of crazy instability and a power vacuum, and then some total psychopath comes in and uses that as an opportunity to take power entirely for themselves. And I think it makes sense too, because if you think about it, in literally any other social organization in your life, your family, a group of friends, coworkers, wherever, where would it ever be a good idea if you wanted to make a change, even a really significant change in that group? How would the most effective means to do that? How would it ever be just coming into the group one day and just like fucking punching someone in the face? Like, that would be the equivalent of doing some kind of bloody revolution or something, right? Coming in and just like murdering the top member of the group. And then, yeah, this will make everything better. If you think about it in any other social organization context, it's hard to even figure out like how that would ever make things better, It's always a massive risk, and more likely than not, all it ever does is piss a bunch of people off and cause a whole ton of chaos. So, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, it's, I think, a little silly to even be talking about the rationale behind all this, because the person who killed Charlie definitely, I think it's safe to say, did not have any political strategy in mind, and this is probably an act of nihilism and pure hatred and not based on actually trying to accomplish anything. But yeah, I don't know. A sad reflection of how utterly deranged things have become in terms of political discourse. politician getting assassinated, whatever. It's happened all the time historically. But a fucking guy who goes around debating with people getting shot like that over political differences, I don't know. It's very unfortunate, to say the least. I don't know. I wish I had more to say about it, but I don't.